Number 4. Take a look at warm up number 4. Is there something missing? Warm up number 4. We didn't, we never did the graph. I don't even know what happened. A third period came in and you guys left, and I was like, oh no, I never actually sketch it. We'll sketch it at the end of this, but let's do this first. Um, so I hate to be that lady, but I'm gonna show you this first. I know you just walked in the door. I know that you're half asleep. I know that none of you got up before this time, all through break. And here I am displaying this news here. But you have a quiz on Friday. The first two questions are exactly the two warm-ups we're doing today. So that's why I wanted to show you this, because these two we're gonna do in warm-up today, and then this we're gonna do in the very first column of the classwork. So we're reviewing all three of these things today. Just wanted to tell you, just remind you. Sadly, we're back. That whole school thing. Okay. So number 5. First, I noticed that it's degree 3 and it has a negative a value, so that's going to affect my sketch. And I'm going to bring this problem, write it down under here. For room purposes, negative x cubed plus x squared plus x minus 1. And then I'm going to take the root that they gave me, x equals -1, and change it to the factor of x plus 1. Okay, and this, remember from last time, the very first thing we want to do is check for a GCF. This one does not have a GCF of x or x squared or anything, so it's good to go. Okay, next step, what size box do I need for the division? 3 by 2. Okay. Super important skill we learned before we all left was polynomial division. First term goes in the first box. And then this has to be negative x squared, which makes this negative x squared. I have negative x squared and I want positive x squared, so this has to be 2x squared. I have 2x, I only need 1x, so I have to take an x away. And that works. Okay, so my factoring so far is x plus 1, the side, times the top. Okay, now we're going to attempt to box and diamond this. Did anybody try it? Not yet? Okay. I don't know if it actually works or not. I'm really drawing these really large, confidently hoping that it works. Okay. Now let's be really careful with our GCF. What GCF do you want to take out of the top two? X. Okay, but we have to be really careful. So if we take X out here, what does it have to be on the top? Negative X. Good job. I just wanted you to notice the negative. And so what does this have to be then? One, right? One times X is X. Does that make sense so far? Okay, so then what does this have to be down here? -1, and then check -1 times 1 is -1, just to make sure that that works. Okay, so I have f of x equals x plus 1 from my original problem, and then the side, and then the top. Okay, and that's factored form. If you want, you can take a negative out and put it in the front. I'm not going to do that here, but you could. This is x equals -1. This is x equals +1. And here's my question. What's this one? Is it -1 or +1? Or let's just do it off to the side. Okay, so what does that mean for our roots? We have one single and one double. Okay, now, is it bothering you that these two do not look exactly the same, but it's a double? So this is a perfectly good final answer, but if you're a person who likes things to look a certain way, what you can do is put the negative in the front, keep the x plus 1 the same, and make this x minus 1 squared. Do you have to do that? No. Does it clean it up a little bit? Make the double make sense? Yes. But either one of these is totally fine. Okay. So let's go sketch it because your teacher is going to totally remember to sketch it. So you have a single at -1 and a double at 1. And then it's a negative a value with a cubed. So where should I start from, the top or the bottom? Beautiful, the top. So go through the single, bounce off the double. And my left arrow is up and my right arrow is down. Okay, now I'm going to put the quiz topics back up. Can you guys tell me, is that bullet point 1 or 2? Bullet point 1 or 2? 2. Factoring a polynomial completely given one root, finding and describing all roots and sketching the graph. That is bullet point number 2. It's not going to be as spicy as this one though, with the negative and whatnot. I promise. It's not. This one was kind of spicy. Okay. Before we go on to number 7, you guys go look at number 4. I want to show you how I graph the imaginary situation in this one. So just to remind you from number 4, there was a double at 0. So put a dot at 0. There's a single at 2. So put a dot at 2. Okay, and then there were 2 imaginaries. This is what I do for the imaginaries. I go to the average of the 2 imaginaries, which is the number in front, which is -2. And I don't make a dot there. I just make tick marks. This is a positive A value with degree 5. So that means you're going to come from the bottom and go up. And what I do is I make my imaginary bounce at that -2. It's just not going to hit the axis because it's imaginary. And then double, single. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are you guys okay if we just skip the end behavior for time purposes? Okay. All right, now go back. That one's, yay, we fixed it. Okay, now go back to number 7. Standard form, blah, blah. Okay. So this one is x minus 3. So root to factor x minus 3. Okay. And what would be the factor for this imaginary one? Do you guys remember what to do? So what I always say in my head is x, switch the sign, switch the sign. Do you guys remember me saying that? X, switch the sign, switch the sign. Okay, now here's the thing. On your quiz on Friday and on this warm-up right here, I have failed to give you the other conjugate. You have to think of it. Whenever you have a root or an I, you have to be like, oh, his conjugate is missing. What is the conjugate of this? Yep, 2 plus 2i. So then you go x, switch the sign, switch the sign. Okay, what did I forget? I forgot something here. It's not really going to hurt me at the moment, but you can see it. It's going to be necessary. The A. Okay. Now, when you do these problems, always multiply the conjugates first because they come out nice. And this is one of those where you don't have to do all the boxes. Because they're conjugates, a bunch of stuff will cancel out, which is great. X minus 2 plus 2i. X minus 2 minus 2i. X squared negative 2x negative 2x 4. Okay, that's easy part. Now what's this box right here? Negative 4i squared. And what's negative 4i squared equal to? 4. So I have y equals a, x minus 3
x squared minus 4x plus 8.
And if you need to,
Remind yourself that 8 came from combining those two guys right there. Okay. Now I think this is the easiest time to solve for A, so I'm going to do that next. I'm going to do it with the correct color pen though. It's 100 minus 40, 60 plus 8 is 68. Did anyone else get 68? Remember, my calculator has been on the charger all over break. What is 7 times 68? Something big. 476. Ah, not too bad. It's just a reminder because we're not jerks. The one on the quiz will be a whole number. And the point will be whole numbers. Okay. So I have y equals 0.2 x minus 3 x squared minus 4x plus 8. Now I'm going to do the box for these two. And then distribute last set. Just a reminder, there will be no decimals on your quiz. I promise. I wouldn't do that to you. If you're starting to get decimals or something, you did something wrong in the problem, I promise. Okay. Goodness sakes. I don't know. It was like the longest warm-up session of all time. I feel really warmed up now. You can scooch that off to the side. The good news is we reviewed 2 of the 3 quiz topics right now. The last one we're going to review at this very moment. Okay. So, we're gonna do two things with number 37. The first thing we're gonna do is review what we learned last, weeks ago. Not last week, 2 weeks ago, about the angles and the quadrants and the word reference and the word coterminal, because that's what's on your quiz. And then we're gonna start today's part, which is going to be using that to find something else. Something else. Okay. So first thing I want to ask is, does the 34 degrees location make sense to you? Just looking at the picture, does the 34 degrees like make sense to your brain? So remembering that this is 0, this is 180, and 0 is coterminal with 360. So all I did was I knew I wanted 34, so I went halfway, which is 45, and then I just backed up the train a little bit. Does that make sense? Okay. So before a break, we learned a few things. And this is what your quiz is going to ask you. It's going to ask you to sketch the angle in standard position. So it's going to say, given 34 degrees, sketch the angle. And you're going to draw this arrow. Does that make sense? Okay. And underneath here, it's really helpful if you label the 34 degrees also. The next thing it's going to ask you is to state the reference angle. The reference angle is the angle in between your arrow and the x-axis. I've already labeled it. It's 34 degrees. Remember that reference angles have to be between 0 and 90, and they're always to the x-axis. Okay, the next thing your quiz is going to ask you to do is to draw and label the other 3 quadrant angles that have the same reference angle. So what you're going to do is you're going to draw the bow tie. So I come down here, go across, come down here, hope that this matches up kinda. And then label, label, label. Okay, in quadrant 2, this angle is 180 minus 34, which is 146. This angle in quadrant 3 is 180 plus 34, which is 214. In quadrant 4, it's 360 minus 34, which is 326. And then the last thing that the quiz is going to ask you to do is find another angle coterminal to 34, which will be 360 plus 34, meaning that you went 34 and then you went all the way around again to that same spot. That's what coterminal means, which is 394. And I like to label it on there with a little comma to show that it's in the same spot. Okay, so we just reviewed what will be on your quiz. The 2 warm-ups and this thing right here. The hardest part, I think, is subtracting from 180. The mental math business, remembering to borrow or whatever. But okay, so that's not actually what we're doing today. But that is your review for your quiz, and that's your quiz review is the homework, and that's a review of how to do the homework. Before I let you go on the homework, by the way, though, I have a few hints for you. Just because it's been a while. But okay, what are we doing today? What we're doing today is we're saying if the hypotenuse is 1, what is the value of x, meaning the base of this triangle? What is the value of y, meaning the height of this triangle? And what is the coordinate of the arrow, where the arrow is hitting right there? Okay, and what we're doing is we're taking our discussion from sine. So last week we talked about sine a lot, and we're going to start talking about cosine. So this is like starting with sine, what we did before last week. So over here, and leave a gap on purpose, but sine of 34 equals, and you guys remember how to do sine for math too. Sine is what over what? Opposite over hypotenuse. So y over 1 in this case. And we would multiply both sides by 1. So that triangle's height is 0.559. And if you remember the screamer, we moved the decimal over 2 spots and said that they were 55.9 feet up. Okay, so this is what we did last week. This is pretty much everything minus the wave bit. Now we're going to start to work on cosine, which is the base of the triangle. So cosine 34 degrees. Cosine is what over what? Adjacent over hypotenuse, right? Which is x over 1. And notice why I put that in the front. I put it in the front on purpose. So the base of that triangle is 0.829. Okay, and so what is the coordinate? The coordinate is an x, y coordinate. So x and then y. There's really not a whole lot new to your life there. It's just that we talked about cosine, which we haven't talked about again in a while. And we just organized our answers into a point, an XY coordinate. Okay, go ahead and draw these two. And if you, I don't know if you do, hopefully you have a little bit of space up here. We're going to come back to this lesson in a couple of days and add tangent. But I don't want to, that's just too much for one day. So I'm going to come back in a different color and put tangent up here. But for now, we're just doing sine and cosine. Okay, so for 38 and 39, we're not really going to do any math really. We're just going to kind of define some things. So make a radius. You can put yours anywhere. I'm going to put mine right there. And from now on, instead of the screamer, I'm going to start calling it its proper name, which is the unit circle. The unit circle is called the unit circle because the radius is 1 unit. That's really exciting. No. And I'm going to put a generic angle in here, theta. Okay, and so what I'm telling you is if you wanted to find the coordinate of whatever this is, I'm going to call it P for point. I could take cosine of that angle to find the x and sine of that angle to find the y, only because the hypotenuse is 1. So it would just be multiplying by 1 on both sides in the equation. So I don't have to worry about that if it's 1. Okay, let's make sure in number 39 that we have this defined properly. Cosine gives you the base of the triangle and the x coordinate. So I'm going to underline cosine gives you the base and the x. Sine gives you the height of the triangle and the y coordinate. Now, I told you guys I have a bunch of dumb stuff that I use to help me remember things. I say x and y are in alphabetical order, and cosine and sine are in alphabetical order. So cosine goes with x because it comes first, sine goes with y because it comes second. I don't know. Just little stuff like that helps me in life. Okay, now down here, if you could leave me a little space. For tangent, and we're not going to do that in this lesson. We're going to come back to this page in a few days and add in what tangent is, and we're going to graph tangent just one time. But just leave that like that for now. We don't need to worry about tangent today. Not yet. Okay. So number 40 is the easiest problem of all time, and it's my favorite. Do you guys remember the Pythagorean pyramid? A squared plus b squared equals c squared, right? Okay, we all got that. And you all know that c has to be the hypotenuse.
And you know what part of the triangle the hypotenuse is? Can you pick out the hypotenuse in my triangle?
Okay, the Pythagorean identity is exactly the same thing. It just has different labels because you're pretending that you have the circle around it. Okay, so let me say that again. Pythagorean identity is the same exact thing. It's just you're pretending that the circle is here. So you have to just kind of visualize that this is the circle. Okay, so it's still the same deal. It's just the letters are different. The hypotenuse is the radius, so we call it R. So where this is a 1, and then the base and height are X and Y because we're working on finding coordinates. So we want X, Y, and the radius. So the Pythagorean identity is simply X squared plus Y squared equals R squared. It's the same exact thing as Pythagorean theorem, just with special letters because you're working with the unit circle. And technically, if you're working with the unit circle, R should be 1 every time. Okay, we have one more problem, which is 41. Gonna take me a minute. Go ahead and set it up. And then I want to give you some hints on your quiz review, which is the homework, just to remind you of some stuff from before break, nothing that you don't already know. Pythagorean identity, by the way, is not on your quiz. That's not one of the topics. This is new, very new, shiny new. Okay, here we go. Gonna go slower. First, I'm going to ask you to sketch this angle where the cosine is 3/4. Okay, what I mean by that is the x is 3/4. So this is the moment in your mind where you're like, okay, I have cosine. Cosine is the base of the triangle and the x coordinate. And I told you guys, cosine comes first because it goes with x in alphabetical order. So I'm going to put a little x here. And I'm going to do that for a while until we get used to cosine being x and sine being y. And I'm going to draw just a generic right triangle in my first quadrant. We're going to talk about the quadrants later, but I don't want to give you too much in one day. Okay, do you notice how my triangle touches the circle? It's not floating in the middle of the circle. It's not way far out past the circle. The radius touches the circle. Okay. If the cosine is 3/4, that means the x is 3/4. Okay, do you guys see where I got that from? Cosine is x, sine is y. Okay, and then for all of these problems, we're working with the unit circle. So the radius is 1, and we want to solve for y, which is sine. So this is saying if your x is 3/4, if your base of your triangle is 3/4, what's the height? That's what these are asking. Okay, Pythagorean identity. X squared plus y squared equals r squared. X squared plus y squared equals r squared. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Same thing. Okay, now it's really important that I teach you how to do this without a calculator. And it's really not bad, I promise. When you square a fraction, you want to square the top and bottom separately. So 3/4 squared is 9/16 plus y squared equals 1. Are you guys okay so far? You see where the 9/16 came from? Okay, these problems are easiest to do if you immediately get a common denominator on your 1. So 9/16 plus y squared equals 16/16. Is everybody clear that 16/16 is 1? Okay, now minus 9/16 from both sides. Y squared is 7/16. It's been a hot minute with the fractions, but you subtract the tops and the bottom stays the same. Okay, what do I do now? Square root. And what do I have to remember when I square root both sides? Plus or minus. Okay, now this is really important. When you square root, it's undoing the square. So you square root the thing separately. So this becomes root 7/4. Do you see where the root 7/4 came from? So root 7 does not come out nice, so it stays root 7, but root 16 is 4. Okay, now we're not done. This particular problem is in quadrant 1. So we say positive root 7/4. And that's just a little bit of foreshadowing for you. I'm going to give you a quadrant later on in life, and you're going to have to figure out if it's the plus or the minus of the plus or minus. Okay, last thing, B is find Q. I didn't label Q. Q is the coordinate right here. And Q is the coordinate X, comma, Y over up. Okay, you guys find your quiz review for me in your packet, please. Okay. First thing, number 1. Is there a GCF? No. And I'm just kind of reminding you to check. Okay, no GCF. You're good there. How do I write -5/3 into a factor? Okay, I do it in 2 steps. I'll put x plus 5/3 and then multiply the x by 3 and make that 3x plus 5. It makes your life so much easier when you do the boxes if you do that with the fraction first. Okay, everybody good with my hint for number 1? Okay, number 2, can you tell what my hint is going to be? GCF the x, yeah. So f of x equals x cubed minus, nope, plus plus x squared minus 21x minus 45. And then this will be x minus 5 for my factor from that. Okay. All right, there's your first two hints. Now move down to these 4 problems. If these 4 problems take you longer than 20 seconds each, you're doing them wrong. These are literally 0, 180, make the angle, like make the arrow. This is just asking you to draw the arrow in a reasonable spot. If this is 0 and this is 180, that means that this is 90. So 60 would be here-ish. You do not have to do anything else. That's it. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just reasonable. Do you understand how to do those 4? Okay, now go to the back side. Look at number 10. I want to set up number 10 with you guys before we move on. So y equals a. Okay. I have a 4th degree polynomial with single roots at 2i and root 3. Okay, 2i. The factor for that is x minus 2i. However, that one is an I, it's an imaginary, right? So what do I need? His conjugate, right? Which is negative 2i. So I need x plus 2i. Okay, samesies here. The root is root 3. The factor is x minus root 3. So what is his conjugate? X plus root 3. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you is whenever there's an I or a root, you have to have the thought and be like, oh, I need the other guy. Because you need something to multiply it by that's super nice so that you can get rid of the gross stuff, the I's and the root. Okay, now let's just talk about how you would proceed with this one. What would you do next? Yeah, so I would do a 2 by 2 for these and a 2 by 2 for these, but you don't have to do the whole thing. You only have to do the first box and the 4th box and then solve for A. Does that make sense? You guys picking up what I'm laying down there? Okay. All right, I'm gonna let you work on that.